Welcome back. This next topic is a big one, the Pilgrim Pipeline. And this is a massive project that's expected to take about 6 months and could impact you because we know parts of the pipeline are going right through Cranford. Take a look at this map and we're going to give you a little bit of history about this project. The proposed parallel pipelines are 170 miles in length and cross over dozens of counties in New Jersey and New York. This is an East Coast pipeline that will carry refined petroleum products such as gasoline, diesel, heating oil, and jet and aviation fuel northbound from New York Harbor to northern New York. We did reach out to members with Pilgrim Pipeline Holdings, LLC. No one was available to speak with us in person, but according to their website, the Pilgrim Pipeline will better meet the Northeast region's current and future demands for a stable supply of essential petroleum products transported in a safer and environmentally friendly manner compared to current methods of rail and barge traffic along the Hudson River. In studio, we have our final guest. This is David Pringle, and you're with Clean Water Action, and you are also part of a coalition against this proposed project. What is that coalition?
And a Cranford resident.
Oh, and a Cranford resident.
Lifer, yeah. The coalition is all the towns initially in New Jersey, but also reaching out to New York that oppose the pipeline because it doesn't make sense, it's not needed, and it's bad from an environmental perspective in terms of pollution, climate change. It's bad for people's property values. It's a danger, the blast zone, and the alternatives would create more jobs.
So those are some of the risks. Why do you guys want this to stop from moving forward?
There's so many. First of all, it's not needed. The folks, if you look at the pipeline, it's actually a two-way pipeline. It's not just moving petroleum products north. It would bring crude oil south to get refined. And this isn't any kind of crude oil. It's Bakken crude oil. It's coming in from Wyoming. It's especially volatile and flammable, so it's more explosive, more dangerous for homes in the area. And in Cranford, it's going to go right next to Hillside Avenue School. It's doing the Lehigh Valley Freight Line is where it would go the right of way there. So also homeowners on Georgia Street and Hillside Avenue, Myrtle, and North Lehigh, they're right up against the tracks, and so they're in the blast zone. So we don't want this from an environmental perspective, from a public safety perspective, or an economic perspective. Again, the folks that would on either end of the pipeline don't want it. Bayway Refinery, which is why the folks that are pushing the pipeline are saying, well, we'll go to Bayway Refinery. Bayway Refinery has said, we have no need for this oil, we don't want this pipeline. The pipeline supporters, the pipeline idea is a couple former executives from the Koch brothers, which is the largest, private, richest, greediest fossil fuel company in New Jersey and in the country. And they're doing this, it's prospective. They're speculating, trying to find a place where they can make some money. The folks on the receiving end aren't asking for it, and the folks on the sending end aren't asking for it. It's supposed to start in Albany, and the folks, the shippers in Albany aren't asking for it either. So it's a bad idea, it's not needed, and it creates a lot of other problems.
Let's pop up that map again, if we can, of the area that affects Cranford directly. And when you look at this, you see that red line. Right. How does it make you feel?
As a lifelong resident, as my kids having gone to Hillside Avenue School, and I was actually, the idea was proposed months before they put out this map. So I was actually opposing it before I even realized it went within 400 yards of my house on Walnut Avenue by the synagogue. So it's a problem, and it's not just a problem for Cranford because of where it goes in Cranford, but it's a problem everywhere. It crosses the Passaic River, the proposed path up in farther northern New Jersey, on 3 separate locations upstream of areas that are major drinking water intakes. Not necessarily Cranford's drinking water takes, but other people in New Jersey, and we care about everybody. And in some drought situations, we would be getting some of that water too. The Chathams and the Madisons get their water from what's called a buried valley aquifer. It's a shallow aquifer, sandy soil. The pipeline goes right over it, and if there was a spill, if there was an accident, that oil would get into their aquifer, and that aquifer would be gone. You can't treat it. They'd have to find an alternative water source. To say nothing of climate change. There are alternatives to this kind of fuel that create more jobs, and Cranford certainly knows about extreme weather. having lived through the floods of the 70s and Irene and Sandy, we don't need more extreme weather, and this pipeline will help more extreme weather come.
Why do you think the Pilgrim Pipeline chose that route? Have you researched that?
Cheapest, easiest, least way to get about it. They knew they couldn't go directly through the highlands. Any farther east is through even more developed areas. So they really have a very narrow path to weave. And even that path has tremendous opposition. Every single town in New Jersey that the pipeline goes through has passed resolutions opposing it, including Cranford. It's bipartisan, unanimous support by the Township Committee a year or two ago. More recently, they've also put the resolution. It's great, but it's symbolic. It's like we don't like the pipeline. But what really matters is the law, and they've since passed an ordinance, not just against this pipeline. That would be wrong and illegal. You can't do spot legislating, but to make sure that pipelines like this, the people of Cranford are appropriately protected, and we've passed an ordinance that can withstand the rigors of the courts to make sure the people of Cranford are protected. Fortunately, they haven't even applied for permits in New Jersey yet. I think they've been taken away by the opposition to it, and we want to keep that opposition going and have them fold up their tent before they even apply for permits.
Do you have confidence that that could happen?
Sure, it happens all the time. I'm not, fortunately, I'm not in their head, but I obviously have different values and think differently than they do. But my entire professional life, I've been working on environmental causes and seen lots of projects stopped before they formally apply to permits. Have seen it denied as the permits go along. Have seen permits approved, and we take them to court and win. Or a new governor comes in, we want to kill this as soon as possible. We have better things to do in our lives than stop stupid projects. We should be pushing for good things, but we'll do what we have to do.
What would you say if the oil executives behind this were in studio right now? What would you want to say to them?
I would love the opportunity to debate them, and they weren't just unavailable. We've been working on this for years, and they've avoided township committee meetings when invited. They do their best work in the dark, so they don't want to be on camera.
So what happens now? What are you guys waiting for as far as the next steps of this coming to New Jersey?
We're continuing to educate and really appreciate TV 35 for this opportunity. We're in a little bit of a lull because it's been proposed and they kept saying it was going to happen, and they've still not applied. And so in some ways it's a blessing and a curse for us. It's a blessing in that it's our great work that has prevented it from going forward. It's a curse because we're kind of in reactive mode, so we just got to keep building and keep educating on the New Jersey side. On the New York side, they have formally applied for permits, and so we're working with our allies up there to do everything we can to make sure those permits are denied. Fortunately, there's about 20 different ways this project could be killed, and we only have to go 1 for 20. They have to go 20 for 20. So hopefully we'll get it killed in New York before they even think about applying for something in New Jersey. If they look at the merits, if New York does their job, the New York Thruway and the Department of Conservation and Governor Cuomo, who are the overriding regulatory agencies up there for this project, if they do their job, they will deny the project.
One more time, please pull up the map for us, because I want to ask you, if this does pass, worst case scenario, and we take a look at this map, what can the residents expect on either side of that red line?
On the red line, it's it starts in Cranford's eastern border on South Avenue, where right by the Parkway, and it's going along the Lehigh Valley commercial freight line. So it's going down behind Myrtle Avenue, right next to the football field. It's crossing Centennial Avenue, right by the tennis courts, going right next to Hillside Avenue School, and then down Hillside Avenue, down North Lehigh, down Georgia, again down Myrtle, where our residents are. So those folks will all be affected, especially if they're on the train side of that road. What property values will go down. Fewer folks want to live next to highly volatile pipelines, and that's a problem, and they're at greater risk. If there is an accident, God forbid, there can be serious explosions. These pipelines do have leaks. There is a train going by. The train, if something happens to the train and it interferes with the pipeline, there can be explosions. And again, this isn't your average, run-of-the-mill crude oil. It's highly volatile. It's highly flammable. And it's because the folks putting in the pipeline in the first place out in Wyoming and in other places aren't doing the things they need to do because it would cost more money to take the more flammable stuff out. So we're on the receiving end, and because they don't want to spend the money, we get more danger. And again, the other half of the pipeline is the refined products going north, and those are by design very flammable. So we're not talking, I'm not going to say it's going to happen or it's likely to happen, but the risk is too great, especially when there are alternatives. We don't need this fuel. There's no demand for it. The alternatives create more jobs. It doesn't put communities at risk.
Is there anything else that you would like to add that we didn't cover?
I appreciate that question, but I actually think I covered pretty much all I wanted to.
And as far as the coalition against the Pilgrim Pipeline, there's tons of members, right? So a cry for help for them if there's anybody that's watching.
And the Coalition Against Pilgrim Pipelines, we've got a great website, incredible amount of volunteers. This has been an awesome grassroots effort with Chatham citizens especially have risen like crazy. They very quickly got that this pipeline is a danger to their drinking water supply.
Well, we want to thank you for being here and educating us about this very topic.
All right. Thank you.